When I opened the door, Mr. Hale stood there like he always did, perfect posture, slate-colored suit, expression unreadable. Except this time, his eyes moved over me slowly, as if taking inventory of my fear. A morning, he said softly, soft. Always soft. That was the problem. Gentle could be more dangerous than angry. A morning, I echoed, trying not to sound like I barely slept and had no idea how to pay him. You're early. His gaze flicked past me into the apartment for a moment, as though he were confirming something he already suspected. Then he stepped inside without waiting for permission. He always did that too. The air shifted around him, cooler, heavier, more aware. I closed the door behind him. My fingers shook. He stood in the middle of my living space, hands in his pockets, surveying the environment like a man walking through a memory instead of a tenant's apartment. The morning light hit his features in angled beams, highlighting the sharpness of his jaw, the seriousness of his mouth. My heartbeat thudded in my ears. I'm guessing you know why I'm here, he said. There it was at the sentence I'd been dreading. I nodded, swallowing the bitter taste rising in my throat. The rent. I know. His eyes narrowed, not in anger, but in something else. Something closer to pity? Curiosity? Interest. I hated that I couldn't tell you didn't pay, he said simply. I know. You didn't call. I know. You didn't even try to work out a plan. My voice cracked. I know. He stepped closer, not menacingly, just deliberately. Like someone approaching an animal that might run or bite. His cologne reached me first, cold and dark, something that didn't belong in a place as cheap as my apartment. How much do you have? He asked. A reasonable question. A landlord questioned, but the way he asked it, quiet, slow, intimate, felt like anything but. I shook my head. Not enough. How much, exactly? $62. I breathed out a humorless laugh. And some coins in a jar. His brow lifted the slightest bit, the only sign of surprise he ever allowed. That's very far from rent. I looked at the floor. Shame washed over me in waves. I know. I'm sorry. I'm trying. Stop. His voice cut in gently, not harsh but firm enough to silence me. I'm not here to argue or embarrass you. I looked up, but I am here to solve this. His eyes pinned me in place. Solve this? How? He stepped even closer, just one pace, but enough that I could feel the warmth of him contrasting with the chill of the apartment. You're months behind, he said quietly. And normally, that would mean eviction. I flinched. Normally, he repeated, eyes flicking to my face to catch the reaction. But you're not normal. My stomach twisted. What does that mean? I whispered. He studied me for a long moment, face unreadable. It means you're in a difficult situation. And while I can't run a property by ignoring payments, his voice dipped lower, almost a murmur. There might be alternatives. Arrangements. A chill slid down my spine. Arrangements. A word that could mean everything and nothing. I don't understand, I said, though part of me did. Part of me absolutely did. You do, he whispered, eyes never leaving mine, and yet, he didn't elaborate, not yet. Instead, he walked past me and sat on the edge of my small table like it was an office desk. He straightened his cuffs, calm, composed, controlling the room with ease. Sit, he said, gesturing to the chair opposite him. I did, because what else could I do? He observed me with unsettling patience, folding his hands. Tell me what happened. All of it. I blinked. What? You've been behind since February. Your hours dropped, the late-night shift stopped, and you haven't brought home groceries in weeks. His eyes were sharp now, cutting through every excuse I might cling to. Why? I stared at him, speechless. How did he know all that? How closely had he been watching? After a moment of silence, he tilted his head and said again, tell me. So I did. I told him about losing the second job, the medical bill, the overdraft fees, the nights I skipped dinner because I wasn't hungry, the exhaustion, the guilt, the constant fear of being thrown out. I told him everything I'd tried to hide, all the things I laughed off when neighbors asked how I was doing. When I finished, he was still watching me, but his expression had changed. Something softer, something dangerous in a different way. You should have said something, he murmured. I didn't want to bother you. A quiet, humorless breath escaped his nose. I'm your landlord. You're supposed to bother me. The tension in the room climbed slowly, a thick tightening that made the walls feel closer. Listen, he said, leaning forward, elbows on his knees. There are non-traditional ways you can make up what you owe. My breath hitched. There it was, the taboo hanging in the air like smoke. He didn't say it outright. He didn't need to. His voice stayed low, almost soothing. You're a good tenant. Quiet. Respectful. You don't cause issues. I don't want to evict you. Then what do you want? I whispered. He let the silence stretch until it became unbearable. Then, with deliberate slowness, he said, I want something that benefits us both. My pulse hammered. Before I could speak, he stood and walked toward the window, hands in his pockets. He looked out at the street below, lit by late morning sun, then turned his head slightly. You ever notice, he said, that the people who need help the most are the ones who never ask for it? I didn't answer. He kept staring out the window. I'm offering you a chance. A real one. No more late fees. No eviction. No threats. In exchange, he stopped. The sentence hovered between us, heavy, unfinished, electric. In exchange for what? I asked, my voice barely a breath. He turned fully toward me, his eyes locked onto mine, and instead of answering, he walked past me toward the door. My heart dropped. Wait, he paused with his hand on the knob. I'll come back tonight, he said quietly. We'll talk then. Privately. Tonight. My voice cracked. Why? Why not now? Because, he murmured without looking at me, what I want to offer you isn't something I want to discuss in daylight. A cold rush went through me. What is it? I asked again. He didn't answer. Instead, he opened the door, stepped through it, and said one last thing before leaving. Think carefully this afternoon. Some opportunities don't appear twice. Then the door closed. I stood in the center of my apartment, breath shallow, thoughts racing, heart pounding so loudly it drowned out the noise of the city outside. What did he want from me? Why at night? Why privately? And why did his tone make me feel equal parts terrified and curious? Worst of all, why did a part of me already know the answer? The silence stretched, fragile as glass. I could feel it pressing against my thoughts, daring me to either shatter it or retreat. I chose neither. I stayed still, caught between the person I had been and the one this night was quietly shaping. He shifted closer, not dramatically, not suddenly. Just enough that I noticed the warmth beside me. My pulse thudded in my ears. I told myself to stand up, to suggest he leave, to reclaim the space I'd willingly surrendered. Instead, I breathed in and did nothing. This doesn't mean anything, I tried to believe. Not yet. He spoke softly, almost hesitant. Are you okay? The concern in his voice unraveled me more than any bold move could have. I nodded, though the answer wasn't true. I wasn't okay. I was teetering, balanced on a thin line of excuses and longing. I said anyway. Another pause. Then his hand brushed mine again, this time not by accident. It was tentative, as if giving me time to pull away. I didn't. The contact was simple, almost innocent, but it sent a quiet shock through me. In that moment, the room seemed to shrink, the world narrowing to the space between our hands. Stop, my conscience urged, just this once. Another voice replied. I thought of the life waiting outside this room, the expectations, the promises, the person who trusted me. Guilt bloomed quickly, sharp and unmistakable. But alongside it was relief. Relief at being seen. At being wanted, even briefly. I turned to face him. Our eyes met, and everything unspoken settled between us. There was no rush, no urgency, just an understanding that whatever happened next would be chosen. When I leaned in, it wasn't reckless. It was careful. Almost reverent. A quiet crossing of a line I had pretended wasn't there. The closeness carried more emotion than action, more meaning than movement. And with it came a sudden heaviness in my chest. I pulled back first. I shouldn't, I whispered. He didn't argue. Didn't insist. That made it harder. He nodded slowly, his expression unreadable but gentle. I know. We sat there, side by side, not touching now, both of us breathing through the aftermath of a moment that couldn't be undone. The guilt settled in fully then, wrapping around me like a second skin. I realized how far I'd already gone, not in what I'd done, but in what I'd allowed myself to want I should go, he said after a while. I nodded, unable to trust my voice. I walked him to the door, every step heavier than the last. When he paused on the threshold, I wondered if he would say something final, something that might justify or condemn the night. Instead, he simply looked at me. "Take care of yourself." The door closed softly behind him. I leaned against it, eyes shut, heart racing. The house was quiet again, but the silence felt different now, crowded with memories, with choices I couldn't rewind. I hadn't planned to betray anyone, yet somehow, I already had. Morning light crept into the room slowly, as if unsure whether it was welcome. I hadn't slept much. Every time I closed my eyes, the night replayed itself, not in sharp images, but in feelings. The pauses. The closeness. The moment I chose not to stop, the house was quiet again, just like before. But it no longer felt empty. It felt heavy, as if the walls had absorbed everything that happened and were now holding it against me. I moved through the rooms aimlessly. The couch where we sat today. The cup still on the table. Small, ordinary objects that now carried meaning they hadn't earned. I told myself nothing truly happened. That no one would know. That I could return to my life exactly as it was. The lie didn't last long. Infidelity, I realized, doesn't begin with touch. It begins with permission. With the moment you allow someone else to fill a space that wasn't theirs to enter. And I had opened the door long before I reached for the handle. My phone buzzed. I froze. For a second, I couldn't bring myself to look. My mind filled in the possibilities, his name, a message from last night still echoing. Or worse, a message from the person who trusted me most, completely unaware of how fragile that trust had become. I finally picked up the phone. A notification sat unread on the screen. I didn't open it. Instead, I sat on the edge of the bed, holding the device loosely in my hand, wondering how a single night could fracture something that had taken years to build. I wondered if guilt would fade with time, or if it would become a quiet companion, showing up in moments when I least expected it. I thought about him, about the way he had understood without demanding anything. About how easily the line between comfort and desire had disappeared. Part of me wanted to reach out, to explain, to find meaning in what had happened. Another part of me knew that would only deepen the fracture. The phone buzzed again. Same notification. Same unanswered question. I stared at the window as the day fully arrived, washing the night away without offering absolution. Outside, life continued as if nothing had changed. Inside, I felt altered in ways I couldn't yet name. Was this a mistake born from loneliness, or a truth I had been avoiding? I didn't know what I would do next, whether I would confess, pretend, or slowly drift further away from the person I used to be. All I knew was that the night had ended, but its consequences had not. I finally unlocked the phone, my thumb hovering over the screen. The story didn't end there. It was only waiting for the next choice. The house felt unusually quiet that evening, too quiet, like it was holding its breath. I pushed open the front door and stepped inside, shaking the last bit of cold air from my jacket. The sky outside had been a deep, bruised purple, the kind that made the streetlights glow earlier than usual. Winter was definitely creeping in. Even the wooden floor under my shoes felt colder than it should have. It was supposed to be an ordinary night, routine, safe, but something felt off, like a puzzle piece had shifted while I was gone, so subtle no one else would notice, but impossible for me to ignore. I stood in the living room for a moment, letting my eyes adjust. Everything looked normal, the soft hum of the heater, the faint smell of laundry detergent from the morning wash, the couch cushions slightly uneven the way he always left them, and yet, my chest tightened with a strange unease. Why does it feel like something is about to happen? I shook the thought away and tried to laugh at myself. Maybe I was just tired. Maybe my mind was looking for drama where there was none. Still, as I walked deeper into the house, I couldn't ignore the tension coiling quietly in the back of my mind. His door was cracked open. A thin line of warm light spilled into the hallway, flickering softly like it was breathing. I paused. He rarely left his door open like that unless he wanted to talk, or unless he wasn't there at all. Hello. I called out gently. No answer. I told myself not to overthink it, but the silence felt heavier than before. A part of me wanted to push the door open. Another part whispered that I shouldn't. That crossing that line, even a small one, could change things in ways I wasn't prepared for. Instead, I moved toward the kitchen. The window above the sink was fogged from the heater, blurring the view of the street outside. I wiped a small circle with my sleeve and stared at the empty road. Not a single car. Not a single person. It's too quiet. Why did that bother me so much? Moments later, I heard the front door close softly. I turned around sharply, heart jumping. He walked in, hair slightly damp, cheeks flushed from the cold, eyes darker than usual. His expression froze when he saw me. "Oh, you're home," he said, voice quieter than normal. Something in the way he looked at me made my stomach twist. There was tension in his shoulders, like he'd been carrying a secret all day and didn't know how to put it down. "Yeah. Just got in," I replied, trying to sound casual. He nodded once and walked past me, but the air between us felt charged, like electricity just before a storm breaks. I watched the way his jaw tightened, the way his hand stayed curled at his sides, the way he didn't quite meet my eyes. What happened to him today? And why did I suddenly feel like it had something to do with me? He paused at his door. Didn't go inside, just stood there. Then he looked back over his shoulder, just for a second, and that single glance carried something I couldn't name, something unspoken, something dangerous, something that would change everything sooner or later. I swallowed hard, and somewhere deep inside me, a question formed. Was tonight really going to be just another normal night? Because suddenly, it didn't feel like it at all. If you want, I can continue with the rising action, 1,200 to 1,500 words, next.